Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. In this episode, you'll discover why, in one of the world's wealthiest countries, humans are living in less space than a zoo lion. This isn't minimalism, this is a design failure of civilization. I recorded this because no matter what the housing market does next, tiny boxes on wheels, prefab showrooms, or AI branded apartments, no one seems to be asking the most human question: what is a life worth? Not in money, not in floor plans, in breath, in restoration, in the ability to belong to yourself without being broken by a price tag. So, I made this for those of us who still know that a home isn't a cage. It's where the nervous system can finally rest. And yes, this is the performance review nearing the end of 2025, because about 40,000 years ago, Paleolithic humans shared large cave systems, not as confinement, but as shelter. Their indoor spaces were fluid, zones for fire, food, sleep, story, rest, and repair. But their true home was the land itself. They walked kilometers daily, drank from rivers, tracked herds, gathered herbs, and followed light. Today, in a glass condo with key fob entry and AI thermostats, a human pays thousands of dollars a month to live in less space than a cave dwelling ancestor, with less light than a forest and less freedom than a migratory animal. This is not innovation. This is polished captivity, a species that split the atom, mapped the genome, bounced lasers off the moon, and taught machines to speak, has concluded in one of its most materially abundant nations that a single human being deserves about 500 square feet of living space. This number is not just a policy decision, it's a boundary line in a global failure of imagination, ethics, and systems design. Because a lion in a new zoo exhibit is allocated about 10,000 square feet of space, he can't live in a space that's less than 400 square feet. And when he's breeding, he needs more than 10,000. It's a biological fact. A gorilla enclosure averages about 4,000 square feet. And this is for a being that shares 98% of human DNA. A single mature oak tree's root system spans over 1,200 square feet underground. But in one of the most celebrated resource-rich societies on Earth, humans are now expected to compress an entire life, a body, a kitchen, a sleep cycle, maybe a life with intimacy, a nervous system, a digestive tract, a storage flow, a healing process, and an emotional arc into a space smaller than the footprint of a mid-sized family restaurant freezer. This is not just urban planning, it's an ethical collapse. Imagine, giraffes walk 10,000 kilometers daily in the wild, orcas swim about 100 miles per day. Even when placed in captivity, the ethical debate has reached the mainstream, which is simply this: to restrict an orca is to ruin it. Yet humans, biologically wired for movement, complexity, interaction, and solitude, are expected to perform 21st century productivity inside glorified boxes, within walls, and no guaranteed reliable transit, or fresh air, or safety, or silence. A tiger in captivity will start to pace. A bird in a cage will pluck out its own feathers. A rat in an overcrowded habitat will become aggressive and depressed. Because these aren't just anecdotes, these are peer-reviewed studies in animal behavior. And yet, when humans begin to break down, the system blames the individual, not the overarching design. 500 square feet is not enough for a human to metabolize reality. It's not enough space to stretch, to sprawl, to store seasonal clothing and gear. It's not enough space to grow life or even invite someone over. It's not enough to be messy and recover when needed. And it's not enough to create and reflect and create again. Humans are not machines. Humans are ecosystems, living rivers of memory and breath and bile and electricity. Humans do not recharge like batteries. Humans heal like forests. You cannot compress a forest into a file cabinet. You cannot compress the nervous system of a mammal into a price per square foot equation. Even bonsai trees, which are intentionally stunted, require meticulous care, pruning, minerals, sunlight, airflow, and patience. A 400-year-old bonsai has more inherited wisdom in its design than the entire contemporary housing architecture of a nation claiming to lead the world. Imagine that. Because the system pretends this is choice. When the housing market eats over 60% of a salary, and its transit systems are broken or non existent, its food systems are unaffordable and unhealthy, and even a used car costs more than a year's rent, the 500 square foot living space is not a free market option. It's a cage with branding. Because humans are now paying to be contained. It's a form of economic captivity, the appearance of autonomy without any of its protections. And the cruelest part? The cage is marketed as a lifestyle upgrade. It's training the mind to accept terms like living simply, downsize, or minimalism is modern. But no, minimalism in this context is a system induced surrender. It's a return to the cave environment days of living, except there's no fire pit or dirt floors. That was the foundation of minimalism, a time when a simple cut could end someone's life due to the lack of medical care and risk of infection. Minimalism has no band-aids, no backup plan, no strategy, and it's not romantic. Cortisol levels rise in cramped environments. Cardiovascular strain increases with chronic noise. Lack of sunlight degrades circadian rhythm. Poor airflow restricts mental function. Stress builds in still air. Over time, the body decays faster. The mind grows dull, and the will dissolves. This isn't philosophy. This is biochemistry. And when the humans get sick, mentally, physically, spiritually, they are prescribed pills, yoga, or mindfulness apps. But no one examines the source design, the cage, the compression, the impossibility of recovery. This leads to a critical systems insight, which is basically that the cost of bad design is paid downstream by emergency rooms, therapists, lost productivity, and tragic mental health outcomes from lives lost to despair and design failure. Humans are now officially resources because their labor is mined, their attention is extracted, their time is colonized, their living space is monetized. In 2025, a human wakes up in a box, pays to leave the box, pays to get to a box-shaped office, works to earn digital points, pays to return to the box, pays to sleep in the box, pays to eat in a box, pays to breathe filtered air in the box. This is not civilization. It's domesticated entropy. The award-winning brilliance of the extraction system is that it convinced the humans they are free. It convinced them that their small cages are luxurious, that their artificial lighting is modern, and that their suffering is personal, not structural. To critique a system is not to mourn it, it's to expose it. To expose it is to offer the only real dignity that remains: truth. Humans need more than survival. They need space to reorient, to design again, to exit captivity not just physically, but structurally. Not by scaling the cages, but by dissolving the logic that birthed them. True transformation is not aesthetic. It's metabolic. It's infrastructural. its root deep. Because until humans are allowed to live like the creative and innovative beings they are, every advancement is just another loop in the spiral. The first world claims victory. But when the average citizen lives in less space than a bear, less light than a forest, and less silence than a beehive, the lie begins to crack. This is not the apex of innovation, this is the collapse of it. And if the system is still calling this progress, then perhaps it's time to stop following systems. It's not time to start becoming anything. It's time to dismantle the design that erased the possibility of becoming at all. Because the systems humans are told to follow, the units, the limits, the rules of square footage and pay per hour, do not lead to life. They lead to containment. And what is contained does not grow. Because humans were never designed to live isolated in silence. Throughout history, communities gathered around fires, shared meals, marked seasons with feasts and ceremonies. Today, in the era of instant messages and frictionless payments, the tables are empty and so are the hearts around them. How is that an advanced civilization? If connection is measured in speed but not in meaning, then the system has only perfected loneliness, leading to depression, a state where a human sees no purpose or meaning in life itself. And that society, it shrinks, it collapses, it dies without ever having lived or producing anything other than misery. Older doesn't always mean wiser. Sometimes it means outdated and in need of an urgent upgrade. My content is produced independently. A home is something I never had. Stability and safety? I've never experienced them. Survival is what prevents collapse, not theater, not illusion. Words and goals cannot fill a stomach. They can't heal a soul. But using them with precision can prevent chaos and ignite a new path forward toward human-centered design. Get this. If the future of housing is being planned around metal containers on wheels, how long before the mechanical failures, supply chain delays, and waste management system breakdowns start to cost more than they save? Because when you design a life around vehicle parts, you inherit vehicle problems. Tires wear down, axles seize, pumps clog, batteries die, and when the thunder starts, you're sitting inside a grounded circuit, hoping lightning misses. That's not freedom. That's false autonomy wrapped in stress. Comfort is an illusion if your nervous system can't relax, if your safety depends on a weather app and the hope that nothing breaks today. Planning matters. Logic matters. You don't build homes on wheels if the wheels don't have long-term service networks. You don't shrink human life into a box if the repair model is outsourced to mechanics and scrapyards. The auto industry is already battling technician shortages and backlogged parts. So what happens when the home becomes a car? Humans don't need new aesthetics. They need intelligence in design, not just to prevent collapse, but to create lives worth living. If the most celebrated thinkers on Earth are proposing metal containers as the apex of innovation, then maybe it's time to exit the echo chamber and re-enter the realm of reason. Because a future that traps humans in branded cages is not a future worth building. The human body appreciates not being trapped in a space the size of a cage. Breathing safely is a challenge in confined spaces, and having freedom to move and be comfortable is the future of design intelligence. Boxability in housing isn't innovation, it's engineered collapse. It's a health and safety hazard disguised as convenience. We live on Earth, and land consisting of soil, not steel cages polished in chrome. People cook. People move. People live. Why are homes being designed by people who don't even cook, yet demand their favorite meals? It often prompts the question, are modern homes being designed by people who has everything done for them? Because home living environments have dedicated spaces for a reason. How is the future of humanity going to survive if no one knows how to feed, clothe, clean, and care for their health with basic human dignity? My insight has already shaped many different systems towards this objective. And you know what? All of those systems, including across technology, and the people inside and outside of them improved because of it. And those systems, they were able to shift and prevent collapse. They won't tell you, because how could they ever admit that they had no idea what they were doing? That I helped them avoid collapse, and the only way they knew how to say thank you was to disappear me. Systems are complex, so the information I'm sharing may not seem important to you, even though it's already shaping the conditions around you. But to those making the decisions that shape the future, this is the map they'll need to follow. They just won't tell you that. My entire life has been spent surviving systems designed to erase me. And there's a difference between surviving and existing. But living? That's something I've never been allowed to know. Not as a woman. Not on this planet. Not yet. I've seen many polish their egos more than they showed their results. You know why? Because all they have is words that pretend to care and masks they wear to pretend they're leaders. But leaders don't lead people towards poverty and despair. Only cowards, liars, and supporters of incompetence do that. Think about it. In a world where any and everything can be rebranded, and where meaning is twisted in more ways than you can imagine, systems will 100% convince you to accept bare minimum as the best option, even when it's not. Because even a dog would leave if it's not housed, fed, loved, and cared for. So, why are systems working overtime to convince people in their own countries to accept bare minimum from the same system set up to oversee and facilitate a better future? Doesn't make sense, right? Imagine if competition meant seeing who can build the best infrastructure and systems so that people can thrive. Crime can be eliminated and people can have choice to live healthy and not bring children into a world doomed to fail. In a time where humans communicate globally and information spreads like lightning speed, there have never been more disconnection and isolation by choice. It's clear much of the system's design is not about supporting well being, but preventing it, then telling you to accept it. Much of it will need to be reshaped and updated. So I'll leave you with this to think about. Intelligence is presence that is aware of the whole, because even trees in a forest know what leaves need to be released so the whole forest can thrive. So, why can't humans do better? That's the question to be answered. The people in support of putting much of society to live in the modern day cave boxes, guess what? They live in homes where that amount of space is probably the size of one room in their house. So they have no clue what you will endure. I create my content myself. This one took me a few weeks to create because the cost of living crisis is reaching its peak and will only get worse. I'm sharing this because I'm also impacted by it, and there's a reason my content focuses on strategy, growth, and transformation. Most people hate change unless it benefits them. Yet they would not want to return to riding horses and carriages or using ships across the oceans like people did before modern transportation was invented. So know that it's important to reflect upon what causes suffering and knowing how to prevent it. These are the systems insights I bring to every table I'm invited to or excluded from. If you know someone who needs to hear this, share it. Because design is destiny, and the future will be shaped by those willing to speak what systems refuse to see. I've helped businesses, organizations, tech platforms, enterprises, and decision makers avoid collapse. They didn't always say thank you. They didn't always value me. And the market? It said it didn't want me. That's okay. I'm launching my own consulting practice now. Strategy, structure, systems. Human first, planet centered, results driven, built for growth and real transformation. I work with the brave, not the illusion of it. If you're ready to upgrade your strategy, build your future, or transform your business, reach out. Wouldn't you rather work with me than sit through another boring PowerPoint presentation? I have experience across multiple levels of government, across departments, jurisdictions, and functions. I've also worked with a range of nonprofits, from grassroots community organizations to large corporate foundations. And I also bring experience across small businesses, mid sized companies, and global enterprises, locally, regionally, and internationally. I've never seen anyone who brings the same depth and breadth of expertise as I do. What I offer can't be found anywhere else because no one else brings this kind of range, working with people top down, bottom up, and across internally and externally with employees, clients, vendors, partners, and stakeholders. I don't just analyze systems. I see the fractures. I feel the misalignments. I anticipate the failure points. And I design root level transformation strategies that most firms can't even language yet. I walk without a map, just like the song I shared says. But that doesn't mean I don't know where I'm going. It means that I'm carving the path with every step, knowing exactly why I was sent ahead. You see, the inventor, the builder, the visionary, they see the final result long before the pieces are in place. That never stopped them, and it never stops me. It's the same way I approach every consulting engagement, with insight beyond the visible, with precision rooted in pattern, and with strategy aligned to what's actually possible, not just what's been done. And every time, it exceeds expectations. It redefines what's possible. Because I don't just follow systems, I architect new ones from the inside out. I've lived in a state of constant stress, not because I failed, but because I've never had a true place to call home. Not one space on this entire planet where I could rest without fear, and I know I'm not alone. That's why this video isn't just a critique of housing policy or design trends. It's a revelation rooted in my own life and the lives of so many others who've been erased, compressed, and priced out of peace. I didn't choose this topic because it's trending. I chose it because it's embedded in my nervous system. It's written in my bones. And if this 500 square feet boxed dreams, broken futures is the best the first world can offer, then it's okay to reject it. A bright future is built on integrity and the ability to detect nonsense from sense to make wise choices. Then tell me, how does any of it make sense? How can humans call ourselves the top of the food chain if we're expected to live in less space than a lion? A home is not just infrastructure, it's a human right. If you don't see it that way, zoom out and tell me, what do you see? I see that humans are the only species on Earth who need to build shelter to survive. Whether it's a wooden shack with dirt floors and no plumbing, a castle built for travelers to rest, or a glass tower floating above the city skyline and everything in between, somehow we're the only ones being evicted from the planet we were born on. Off grid is still connected to the grid. And remember, technology will stop working if the sun doesn't shine, the wind doesn't blow, the water dries up, and the electricity shuts off. The only place you will truly feel okay is if you have a home that's intact and not trashed or destroyed as in the movies. Natural disasters are expected, it's just the earth doing her thing. But humans? All forms of destruction is a choice. And when the lights go out, though, suddenly all that light pollution will disappear and you'll be reminded of the real stars again when you stare at the night sky. To the people who see off grid eco homes and comment, this should be everywhere. The answer is no, because that's not how Earth works. Different zones, different rules. Different terrains, different risks, different climates, different materials. You cannot drop a solar paneled glass cabin into a floodplain, wildfire zone, earthquake fault line, volcanic region, coastal erosion zone, hurricane belt, tornado alley, landslide zone, permafrost zone, drought zone, sinkhole prone zone, or nuclear fallout zone and call that sustainable. Did you know there are over 8 types of architects, each trained to design for different human needs, ecosystems, and risk profiles? So, unless you understand topography, disaster risk, zoning laws, and structural loads, please sit down and stop copy pasting fantasy homes across the entire globe. My Find Your Inner Magic content has a purpose. In time, I'll share more about that. If you want to grow and become your best, protect your spark. Keep it away from people who try to destroy it. That's why I'm sharing this. Too many spend their energy trying to kill someone else's spark instead of finding their own. But maybe that's the problem. Some people don't have a spark. And that's why, even in a world of modern innovation, more access to information than ever before, systems are still fragmented, outdated, and failing. Pretending to care is not caring, it's betrayal. If systems were designed to thrive, no one would leave to go elsewhere, don't you think? Think about it. If you're fed, clothed, safe, and can enjoy having time for yourself and others outside of work and play, isn't that something you would never want to leave? Well, it's the same principle, nothing different. Pretending otherwise is an illusion, and it's time to start recognizing it. See you in the next one.